My fault, gang. We're a few minutes late, but we are going to start the Thursday, May 27th, Webster Town Board Workshop. And tonight, we actually have only one topic, and it's emeritus of being the only topic. And this is the big rollout of what I hope is going to be a very impressive project over the next couple of years down in Sandbar Park. And we have representatives here tonight from Pastoral Associates, and I always say, Mark, is it Bayer Associates?
Bayer Landscape Architecture.
Bayer Landscape Architecture. So I'm going to hand the baton over to Mark Bayer and Pastoral as they are going to do a presentation of at least where we're at currently in the designs and things going on Sandbar Park.
Thank you, Tom. I'm going to just pop up here and kind of introduce what we're going to do tonight. So I am Mark Bayer. I'm the principal of Bayer Landscape Architecture. Really excited about being here tonight. I've been before this group a couple of times, and I keep saying it, but this is a jewel of a project, and I think we're even more excited as we've been able to develop a full model of a digital model of the park, and you'll be able to see tonight and really kind of feel the experience out there. And so thank you very much for having us at your workshop to kind of bring you up to date and talk about both the park and the Ready projects. I have with me tonight Josh Raymore from our firm on the left, Pete Wayner and David Cox, and Dustin Welch in the audience, and Matt Sheffield is helping us out here too. So we've been working really hard with the town's team, Supervisor Flaherty, Chris Philo, Barry Dean has been instrumental throughout this long process. Marion Harrington has recently joined us, and Josh Artusa, and of course Matt Chatfield has been part of the whole process. So tonight our goal is to give you a brief summary of the project. And what I wanted to tell you is we have, Tom may have mentioned briefly, but we have 4 planned open house events. We have an event on June 2nd, June 8th, June 10th. Those will be at the Rec Center. And then we have a special one at the Farmers Market on June 12th. So the goal, again, working with the committee from the town, is to give multiple opportunities for people to come, see the display boards, talk over the project with all of the representatives of the team, and really understand the project in every sense. So the slides you're going to see tonight basically represent all of the boards that we will have at the public meeting, so everybody will see these. And so what I wanted to do tonight, the presentation is going to include a brief summary of the Ready projects, the new Bayfront building. It will also address, obviously, the park. And Dave Cox from Pastoral will be talking about Ready. Pete Wayner will be talking about the new Bayfront building. And I will talk about the park and a little bit about the anticipated project schedule, which will bring you up to date on. And then Matt Chatfield has been working close with Paul Adams, and Matt's going to speak to a lot of the grant work he's done in the past and the grant work we're anticipating doing, and the financial side of all of the projects. So hopefully when we leave here tonight, we'll have a great picture of this fantastic project. So what I'd like to do right now is we're going to start with the Ready. This is just some images that we took over 2017, 2019, and kind of the impetus, throughout much of the state for this Ready funding that became available. I'm going to let Dave Cox from Pastoral speak a little bit to the Ready project.
Sure.
Good evening, Dave Cox, Pastoral Associates, civil engineer. I get to talk about the more boring stuff, but it's definitely important as well. So 2017 and 2019, we saw some really high water levels on Arundecoit. I mean, a lot of businesses along the bay and lake had to shut down. These are pictures up here, right around the Bayfront restaurant. The water level was pretty much right at the front door, just waiting to come in. And the IJC has not said that it's not going to get this high. They've in fact said plan for it to go higher. Being that we have a gem of a park down here in Webster, and there's money available, we want to see what we can do to help provide resiliency and to guard ourselves against raising water levels in the lake in Arundecoit Bay. So next slide. So the state actually has a program that's called READY for short. It stands for Resiliency and Economic Development Initiative. So that is a program through New York where they will give grant money for projects just like this, where we're going to take infrastructure and parkland and roads and make it more resilient to raising floodwaters. So there's a couple different grants that we received. One of them is MO 56. They classify the READY grants as MO with a number. MO 56 is Lake Road. And what we're doing there is we're raising Lake Road up. So right now it can be in the flooding area that we experienced previously, and if water gets much higher, that road could be completely underwater. So part of this project, we're actually going to be raising Lake Road up in vertical elevation. So it's we're raising it a minimum of 2.5 feet, sometimes up to 4 feet or 4.5 feet. So we're really raising up so that it's going to be above those water levels. The other thing that we're doing, since we're raising it up, is we're actually changing the alignment some. So if you drive down Lake Road, you'll notice that it is really, really close to Arundecoit Bay. It is the edge of the pavement, and you got maybe a foot of grass, and then it kind of drops right down to the water. And you have, Arundecoit Bay is just such a nice asset. There's no room to walk along there or really to enjoy that waterfront there. So we're actually moving the road further away from the bay and really opening it up so that it creates a nice parkland grass area with sidewalks for bicycles, walking, so that people can actually enjoy the Arundecoit Bay along that edge. And also, we have parkland kind of on the east side of Arundecoit Bay, so that'll provide a nice tie point where we can have sidewalk that'll link that east side all the way towards the parkland that you see on the left side of the screen there, where the Bayfront restaurant and the Sandbar Park is. For that relocation, it actually requires a parkland alienation. Since we're taking the road and moving it onto part of an area that is a park, so we can create parkland on the opposite side. So we actually have a net increase in parkland, which is fantastic, but still, whenever you are taking parkland away, even if you're giving more back, it still requires a parkland alienation, which is a literal act of Congress, where we're working right now to have all the documentation and the legislature go before the Senate and the Assembly to pass approval to actually have the parkland alienation. So we're in the middle of that process. And then moving on, the next two is MO 59 and MO 78, and that is for flood wall protection. So right in front of where the Bayfront restaurant is along Arundecoit Bay, we're actually going to be putting in flood wall to combat the raising waters, and we're actually going to be where the Bayfront is currently. We're going to be raising that up around 4 to 4.5 feet. So we won't have water knocking at the door of that new building there, wanting to come in. And then the MO 78 part is there's an existing pump station that's owned by Monroe County there, and we're putting a flood wall around that to also protect that sanitary sewer pump station from rising waters. Next slide here. So this slide really kind of helps to demonstrate what we're doing. The slide on the top shows kind of a cross section through the Bayfront restaurant that shows the existing condition, and then that red hatched area that you can see that is how much we're actually filling. So that red is all the fill we're going to bring in to raise up that area. And as you can see, we're filling all around the bayfront. So if we were to leave it there, it would be a complete bathtub, which obviously would not work to have the bay, restaurant 4 feet in a hole. So it doesn't work for that. So the building needs to come down, and a new structure needs to get put up. So then that bottom slide shows kind of the proposed, where elevation is all raised up. The building's up higher, the flood wall's there, and the road is raised. There's also an existing dock there at the bayfront that is very narrow, very rickety and leaning, and it's not too friendly for public access. You feel a little weird walking on it, like you're going to fall in. So that dock, as part of this project, will also be replaced with a much wider, flatter dock system that will be much more public friendly. So that'll be a nice asset for people down there in the park to be able to use that dock and feel more safe on it. I think that wraps up everything I wanted to touch on. Next slide. And then I will hand it over to Peter Wayner, King Architect of Passboro. He's one of the best. He's been in the game a long time, and he can talk about what he thinks.
Talk to my wife. Yeah, hi, thank you very much. Pete Wayner, Passboro Associates. Like David said, that the unfortunate casualty of the Ready project is replacement of the Bayfront building. The Bayfront building is very possible to be replaced, so what we've been doing, we've been working with really a committee of engaged citizens and thought leaders here in the town of Webster talking about this project for quite a bit of time. And we've been talking about that building and what could be possibly used for that building for quite a while. So there's a couple of scenarios that came through, which I'll get to in just a few minutes. But the Bayfront, as David said, for a lot of reasons has to come down. It is a building on public parkland. That building, probably doesn't meet many codes as it would be for current codes, especially for use as a restaurant. But all of those things can be replaced under the scenario that we're looking at. One of the initial scenarios that we looked at was perhaps a dual function building, which really fell away as a possibility. The amount of square footage that this site, building square footage that this site supports, is not something that we could go to with the amount of parking that we have to something to double the square footage of what the current building is. So we started to look at what can we do on that site. And the existing building there is 1,600 square feet, approximately, pretty much exactly. They have an 800 square foot storage barn up above. If you look at a square that would be put around the Bayfront building from its outer edges, that's exactly 2,400 square feet. So right now what we're looking at is replacing that 1,600 square foot with plus the 800 square foot with a 2,400 square foot building in the current exact location where the Bayfront is. We still are maintaining the dedicated parking, which we'll probably talk to a little bit more, to the west from about 23 parking stalls and 43 parking stalls, sorry. And then we're going to be looking at what can that building be done. So the town has conceptualized engaging in another group of the same group that we had, or a different group, to start to look at what could be possibly done with that building. We definitely know and feel from everything we've been working on, there needs to be a structure on the site. We need physical functions of bathrooms, which we can have on the north side and the south side, really functionally are needed in the north and south side. You have a significant amount of square footage over there, or uses over there that we feel would be supported by a building. How can that building be purposed? So we feel that there's a scenario where a shell could be built, and then the concept would be sought for who would be the user of that. And there's two possible users. There's a commercial use, or there's a public park use or municipal lodge use. And I think the highest and best use is something that the people of the town of Webster need to determine, or that Empower Group, and they're going to be going out for an RFP process to try to look at how and what could be used for that building. So there would be a shell built, and this is the type of use that is done commonly in Parkland, even at Letchworth. I think that Glen, I always get it wrong, Edith or Iris, is used the same way as a park building that has a commercial use inside. So that is like a possible scenario. So a Bayfront user could come back in and function as a commercial use. If that deal is not advantageous to the town, it could be used as a municipal lodge. Next slide, please. So we've always been looking at the imagery, and I think if you were part of the early process, we looked at what types of buildings would look appropriate out there. We're coming up with a building that is very maritime look. We feel like it might have like that widow's walk at the top, a metal roof, some kind of a building that would have a durable shell, including cement siding, elements of stone. And this is just the way we kind of conceptualize the building, and it certainly can be customized when the user comes along as far as the use goes. So, but this is the size and shape of the building that we think would look appropriate in that location. This functions really well with the hardscape around it, where people can interact inside and outside. If this is a municipal lodge building, it can certainly be used for seasons, where ice fishing and events on the frozen bay are something that could be used during winter. Envision it, much like the new lodge building that was built in Webster Park, where we would have, if it was a lodge building, would have a small amount of functions for people to bring in food or serve food, as well as the possibility of a concession stand in addition to a lodge function, or it would be a private commercial endeavor that would have obviously whatever the commercial endeavor was serving. So there's a couple of ideas for that. That's our conceptualization of where we're at right now.
Thank you, Peter. I'm going to jump into the park proper and just talk about that a bit. So this slide, we presented previous similar slides too. This is just showing the many features that we're planning for the park, from the lakefront walkways to lots of seating, picnic areas, kayak launches, environmental education areas. We have a fishing pier planned. We have multimodal trail system planned so that you can ride a bike or walk along the bay. And just lots of wonderful features. And that has translated in over time. We've gone through quite a process working with an advisory committee composed of about 10 or 12 citizens. Barry headed that up. We've worked with them for a couple of years at least, and kind of went through a design process from programming through early schematic design into where we are now, which is a more advanced design. And we had a workshop session a few years ago, 2 years ago, and we're kind of leading into where we are today, which is a well-advanced design where we're ready to come back to the public, share at the 4 events that we're planning, so everybody can see the full update and understand the project more fully. This is just a plan view on the screen. This is the west end. We have a long, narrow strip of parkland that goes basically from the Castaways area west for quite a distance. And essentially this will be an improved set of stairs to get up and down at Castaways. The deck, portion of that deck is on public land. And there will be a defined public way there, working with Castaways to the best degree possible. Some new steps to get up and down from the trail. And then the trail continues west to a point where we'll be able to ramp back down to Lake Road. And someday we're hoping there'll be a way through another project to carry people all the way over to the outlet. So that's the goal on the west end. The core of the park is in this image, and the core park has many features, including the building, the new bayfront building that Peter was talking about. This is the wall that will be part of the flood wall protection. The pump station is here. The idea being that there's great public access here with beautiful seating opportunities. We have fully upgraded and improved parking on the west side of the new building. We have a kayak launch over here at the west edge, which will be a drop-off zone, and car top kind of kayak launch with a accessible device to be able to launch kayaks with ADA accessibility. There's great lawn spaces for multi-purposes. There's the peninsula that remains intact and green, so wonderful opportunities for passive recreation. On the lake side, there is additional parking, and then there's a couple of great upper lawn plateau for picnicking. There is a shade pavilion, kind of the sunset view. The money shot is up there. There is a lakefront promenade that goes all along the lake. There is a nature play area that we're building in, and then a trail system that's going to go through the existing kind of woodland and be able to make your way back down to the lake road and cross over to the bayside. And then there's a multimodal bayside trail which goes all along the bay and kind of ties the east end to the core park and so on. So lots of fantastic features. It's shaping up to be a really, really special place. I think residents and folks from outside are going to be, I think, drawn to this park. So the east end, connects with that multimodal trail there's a really nice fishing pier that's been designed here, and there's a great kind of environmental education area over at the very east end, and some of the features of that will be Boardwalk Trails. This is a view of the fishing pier here, I'm sorry. That's located there. This is the fishing pier. We'll be able to get out on the water in a reasonable way and really be able to use that. As part of the environmental education area, there's another kind of platform at the very east end of the bay where it's got a phenomenal view down the lake. There'll be another accessible kayak put in there, and great spot for outdoor classrooms, gatherings, and the ability to access water via kayak, and then a trail system that goes back in among the kind of geological landforms that are pretty special down here. If you've never been in there, it's just outstanding glacial forms, some beautiful sights and views in there. So the road alignment, as Dave had alluded to, the road is being realigned to get a little further north, giving us great space on the south side. And for the first time, you'll have a sense that you have a place to ride a bike, walk, you're not going the bay or get run over. So it's I think, a fantastic improvement. These are just this slide shows kind of the existing condition where the road is right there at the bay, and the proposed condition where the road slides north, and we have plenty of right-of-way with the county there, and we're capturing all this green space here and doing a wonderful broad multimodal pathway for biking and walking, and for the first time, I think, be able to fully enjoy that great edge of the bay. So that's what these are doing. We developed some, as I told you, built a digital model of the park, and we're sharing with you some imagery from that. The upper left here is the environmental education area, looking out at it, the platform, the kayak access over here. There's a boardwalk that will take you right off that multimodal trail over into the environmental education zone, and through a portion of the Cattail Marsh. This is another view looking the other direction along that multimodal path. Notice the great green space separation to the road. Crossing, they'll get you over to the Woodland Trail that goes up to the lakeside upper plateau area and natural play area. This view is kind of that upper plateau area and kind of a fantastic scene that you will have with the walkways and promenades. There's a shade structure over in this vicinity, there's sitting areas, so all kinds of great sunset views or daytime views. This last corner slide here is over by the new Bayfront building where there'll still be, no matter what scenario, there'll be opportunities for outdoor seating along the bay. Great public space over there as well. This is just giving you a glimpse of aerial perspective of the overall park. You can see the improved docking system, the great kind of peninsula open space that projects out into the lake, which will remain, of course. Series of walkways, the proposed new Bayfront building, parking areas. Crossing over, there will be a restaurant facility on the north side right here, and then the pathway system and so on that's up along the lake. So very exciting, I think, vision that will create a destination for this town. I firmly believe that. That's where we are. As far as schedule goes, our plan for both the Ready project and the park projects, because they're two independent projects working together, but our goal is to complete design from now through November, and the projects would be bid out sometime in November, and the goal would be to be under construction in the spring of 21, and likely, spring of 22, and likely completion in the following year on those projects. We have, and this is all tentative, there is, depending on funding sources, the environmental education area sets up nicely for a possible second phase, and ideally we'd be able to build it all at once, but it is distinct, as is the west end, so we have options on that, and that's still being worked through. So with that, I wanted to have Matt Chatfield join us and speak a little bit to some of the funding sources that are available, and some that we've secured previously, and talk a little bit about the financing and the financial aspects of this that he's been working through with Paul Adams. So, Matt?
Thank you very much. Okay. Matt Chatfield, Webster, Economic Development Alliance. So, is it on?
Yes.
Oh, it's on? Perfect. Okay, great. Can we go to the next slide? Do I have it here? Perfect. All right. Do you have this sheet in front of you? Okay, because it's difficult to read on the screen. I want to focus on this slide in the packet in front of you. I did hand something out, but I just want to speak to that briefly. I don't want to get people confused. So the project is obviously pretty capital intensive. We have Ready projects totaling $2.4 million for the roadway, total construction. Of that $2.4 million, $1.4 million has already been secured via grant funding that we secured in 2019, part of the Ready program. Ready project MO 59 and 78, those would be the flood walls. We're targeting total $1.162 million. of those two projects, we actually have two separate grants that were awarded for those two components. The sheet that you have in front of you discusses one component, one award of $710,000, but there's an additional one. It just kind of fell off the slide by accident. There's another $250,000 that would go towards that. So that's a total of about $960,000 of the $1.162 million has already been secured for that project. And if we go to the town capital project, which is talking about the actual bayfront building itself, the reconstruction of that building, the conceptual cost estimate, we're at about 60% now. I believe that is for a lodge facility that would include the shell and of course all the amenities and finishings within the building. Okay, so that's the proposed number, just so we can get a better understanding of order of magnitude of $1.364 million. So in addition, the town has already secured $200,000 from DASNY towards that effort. And that money was secured many, many years ago, and we've been kind of pushing those funds along. And then the actual capital project for the construction of the park itself, right now, absent the building, but for the park components, which are phases 1, 2, and 3, which would go the west side, part of the core area, and then of course the environmental education component, is a combined total of about $4.8 million. Okay. And to date, we have yet to secure money directly associated with those particular components. So the sheet that I actually handed out to you describes the grants to date. We've secured about $2.7 million already of the projected $10.7 million project. So we're well on our way, and we haven't put a shovel in the ground yet. We're not even actually up to 90% design. I think we're at 65% design plans at this point. So we're actually in very good shape. The town is in the process of beginning to apply for additional funding through the New York State Consolidated Funding Application process. That funding window is an annual grant program, or a series of grant programs. There's about 30, well, maybe closer to 15 separate grant programs by New York State agencies. We put in a single application for our project for numerous funding programs. Right now, we have identified 2 funding programs: the local waterfront revitalization program and the Green Innovation Grant Program. Those are 2 separate programs, and we're targeting $2.5 million to $3 million requests for those particular programs to help support construction of the park. And with that would end up giving us a delta somewhere in the range of plus or minus 5 to 5.2 million, based on the overall cost estimates at 60% that we have today. So we're dialing it in. We have $2.7 million today secured, committed to the town of Webster to make this a reality. We're going after an additional 2.5 to 2.7, even maybe $3 million. Those awards would be notified in December, which may impact our bidding timeline. You know, the bidding we had initially said may end up happening in November. We might push it off a month, because why not wait until we see if we have the funding available to us? And then at that point, we have a much better position, you know, as we head into construction in the intervening years. So was I able to describe that succinctly? Are there any questions regarding that component?
I had a question, Matt, regarding serial line financing. The one is planned at 5.766 million, the other is 5.2 million. There's a discrepancy there. I just wanted to-
Correct. So there's 2 scenarios that were put forth. One, the top scenario is debt financing under the assumption that we will obtain $2.5 million in additional grant funds through the LWRP and GIGP programs that I just described. So that would be about 5.7 million. I'm going to try and go after a little more, but about 5.7 million, and targeting about $270,000 in principal and interest payments annually, which is about $52,000 per million, which is actually really affordable money today. Typically, in the past, it's been $60,000 to $70,000 per million, and now we're targeting at $52,000 per million, which is it's actually very affordable. It's very affordable money. Absent the award of those grants, should the town consider and want to move forward with this project. We've already secured 2.7 million, we're ready to go. Absent those, the 2.5 million, the second scenario would be bonding of 7.7 million, right? Is that what the second scenario is? 8.2. Very difficult for me to read what's on the screen. So those are the two scenarios, just so you understand, if we're unsuccessful in this year's grant round, in order to move the project forward, that's what we're envisioning. But the 2.7 million that we've secured today has timelines associated with it. And that is the, where the rubber meets the road. The ready funds that have been awarded to us, there is a timeline associated with their expenditure. There is no kicking the can down the road for 24, 48, months down the road. We just can't afford that. The money will end up getting pulled from us. So that money will need to be expended by 23. What do we know?
I don't know that anything.
Okay, but we do have a timeline associated with that funding. It's not infinite. Oftentimes with LWRP funds, other state funds, we can ask for extensions. It's unlikely that we're going to be given a significant amount of extension opportunities for those funds to make this project a reality.
Matt, I would say, first of all, thank you to everybody who went through this presentation tonight. The last screen that you have up there, which is the financial breakdown, trying to put it into an aesthetic format that you don't have to be a CPA to understand. That is probably the one screenshot that we still have a little bit of a work in progress on, that we hope over the next couple of days we can tighten that up, so that when we roll into the open houses next week, the first one being Wednesday, June 2nd, at the rec center between 7 p.m. and 8:30 p.m., that screenshot of the financial aspects of this project will be tightened down. Also, at those presentations, kind of they are more like an art gallery type of thing, where people will walk in. There'll be different easel setups for various components of this. I would assume that the esteemed Mr. Paul Adams, our finance director, who unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight, might be the one that is moderating, standing next to that easel, so that as the public and the citizens ask questions about that, our finance director can answer them as earnestly as possible. So, and it is interesting, because this will be a fluid process, no pun intended, because where you're showing there some scenarios that have almost 50% of the project cost being granted. We're in the middle of trying to also figure out getting more grants, but and Barry might be the best to attest to this. There's some of the work here that you think your second successor's department, we have Mr. Pat Stevens in the back of the highway department, that we might be able to do some of this work inside the town to
Hopefully we will
reduce
be
some
able
of
to
the
reduce
cost.
some of the cost of this by using our own forces.
Right. Yeah.
Hopefully.
So there is so much that's going to happen over the next couple of months. And all of it, I'd like to think, the efforts of many people on this team is to improve these numbers, either reducing the cost for things like Barry just said, or increasing the amount of grant money we get, so we have to put less tax burden in bonding on the Webster citizens.
There are multiple opportunities between cost savings associated with the town. And in addition, the results of the RFP process for the building itself, there will end up being a licensing fee that would be required for any potential commercial applicant, right? So that licensing fee would also be able to be utilized to offset bonding.
Yeah.
And like I said, bonding at $52,000 per million, it's depending on what those licensing fees these are. We have no idea what that would look like just yet. We haven't explored it. But that would also end up being a cost savings to the town.
And, all right, I don't want to hog the microphone now, so I hope that people have questions or comments that somebody from the panel or from the town board can answer, or ask Mary as the town engineer, but is that, well, one thing I want to make sure is made known is that a couple of years ago when the advisory committee that Barry had chaired did a public presentation in this boardroom. Barry, I don't know if it was 18?
19.
Was it 19? And I've heard, and I don't want to, the amount of people that came to that one open house presentation, how many people came?
I'd say about 100 there.
About 100. There's 46,000 people in this community. We are bending over backwards to try to drive as many citizens to these open houses as possible. Very well thought out process by a team of probably about 15 people that have had their fingers on this to this date. We purposely made sure that these were on a Wednesday night to start out on a June 2nd, 7 to 8:30 p.m. at the rec center in a room there that is fabulous. Big, spread out, COVID friendly. We can set up the easels apart so people can hear themselves talking, can ask questions to the moderator of each easel. That's Wednesday, June 2nd. Then you got Tuesday, June 8th, same place, rec center. You got Thursday, June 10th. That means that over a 7 or 8 day period, we picked a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. There's young families that have sports. We only had it one night. Couldn't make it that night. So we've given a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday at the rec center, 7 to 8:30 at night. You'll walk out of there, it'll still be light out this time of year. And on Saturday morning, June 12th, at the Webster Plaza at the Old Wheat Farm Market. Come and buy some different things and come to our tent and see it. It's my hope that literally 1,500 to 2,000 people plus come to these open houses. Now, many people have heard me say over the last 18 months, the town has a communication problem with its citizens. I'm not blaming anybody, I'm stating a fact. So if you're watching this or you're in the room, we have a 9 by 11 inch postcard that has been sent out that will hit every residence in the town of Webster on Friday, May 28th or Saturday, May 29th, that lets them know about these 4 open house presentations. I'm going to tell you this. This town board, probably going into August, September, October, is going to be tasked with some very serious things when it comes to this project. Bid processes for the construction of the thing. How much we got to go and bond our community to, $3, $4, $5 million. And the one thing I've learned in 18 months doing this job is that people will walk into this boardroom at that time, 8, 10 people, and they're going to probably say, don't do this. This is not a good plan. Don't do this. This is $5, $6 million. I've always worried that that's going to be the vocal minority. I want to hear the vocal majority. And that's why we put a premium on marketing, promoting these open houses, giving as many dates as possible. I want to hear from 2,000 citizens. Because what those citizens will do at those public meetings or open houses is the people that are moderating the easels. And by the way, I don't know if I've told the Pastor and Bayer crew, I got dibs on the building easel. Okay? And those nights that I'll be there, that's work. That's taking notes, hearing what the citizens have to say, hearing their ideas, hearing their questions. That's why if we can get 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 citizens, that may guide Bayer, Pastoral, the town board, Matt, on tweaks that we hadn't thought of. That's collaboration. That's government for the citizens. I applaud back in 19, you had 100 people in this room for one night. I'm not taking a shot at that effort. I want to hear from more than 100 citizens on a project that costs money. We'll try our best to minimize what it costs to the citizens, but that is going to be a jewel if it's pulled off for the next 50 plus years in this community. Where else does the town have waterfront, Mr. Chatfield? In Webster.
On the lake or the bay?
That's waterfront.
What about it? Webster Park. Well,
Webster Park is a county park.
Right.
This is ours. And it has a chance to be unbelievable. And we are going to try to go down this path the next couple of months, leaving no stone unturned. I will jump off my soapbox. I hope 3,000 people come to these events. Karen already knows, as soon as this meeting's over tonight, blast our social media, blast our website. My article in the Webster Herald next week will be about these open houses. Every communication mechanism we have available to ourselves at the town currently, we are going to utilize to drive as many people to those presentations as possible. Because that is going to help so much in guiding this board as we move into August, September, and October. Because Matt, and as you guys have said, for this to work, we probably need to be breaking ground on this thing in March or April of next year. So, there's the verbose Irishman. I'm not going to say anything else tonight. I'll let everybody else ask the panel and whatever questions or comments on this.
One point of
I promise.
clarification. One point of clarification. I misspoke about building on the north side of the road. I mentioned accidentally restaurant, but it is restrooms. I just wanted to be clear about that.
Thank you, Mark. You had me nervous.
A couple letters different.
Yes.
It's all been said.
Well, Barry, you and I don't have any questions because we've been involved in this in many meetings the last couple months, but I appreciate that Bill and Dolly and Patty and Charlie and John Cahill and that crew.
And he's not here right now because he's away for this week, but Chris Bilo
Yes.
has become a very important linchpin in this as well. He's brought a lot to the table, and I think he will continue to do so.
Yeah, actually, we're missing two of our big ones tonight, Chris Bilo and Paul Evans.
That's okay.
Let's just build it and get on to it. I've been involved in this project from when we purchased the property.
Why do you gotta be so verbose?
And I've been trying to get
Can't
this
just
park done.
Be succinct, all right?
We're trying to get this park done. You need to build it.
But it's been a good process, and I think we've come up with different ideas than we had when we initially
Yeah.
purchased.
I agree. I think it's a great project the way it is right now.
Yeah, I think it's exciting, I like the way it looks, it reminds me a lot, on a mini scale, of Lakeshore Drive, Chicago, where the waterfront is actually accessible to people. And
I
you
couldn't
park
figure
right
out
along.
what it looked like to me. That's exactly, you're right,
And
Patty.
it's on a much smaller scale, but it's commendable for a community to make their waterfront accessible to all of everyone. I think it looks great. I had one question about the kayak slip and dock access at the far end over on the environmental education area.
Sure.
Well, you have to portage a kayak over there.
Well, the idea was that
You'd launch at the
that
other place.
you paddle down,
Yeah.
and you can, we're gonna create a slip so you can get in and have a picnic down there, or a class to paddle down, and there'll be a way to get on a slip that's adjacent to the platform.
Okay, great. And I have seen the ADA accessible launching facilities for kayaks and passive water use. They're phenomenal.
Right, and we had numerous requests at the last open house for that feature.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely something we're going to do, and, I think it's going to be great. I mean, that end of the east end of the bay, that view over there is astounding when you get in there and look back west. So it's a fun area. It's also got those glacial landforms that it's fun to hike back in there. Look up through them. It's great.
One of the things that's important about this project is that there's a lot of history. There's a ton of history in this area, and we have a lot of that that can be utilized possibly in some of the buildings, but also that what we always talked about was that we're not just building a park, we're building a destination. And those were the key words you used during your initial presentation to us when we were in the process of selecting an architect, and I think that says it all.
Yeah. We're super excited about it. It's such a rare site where you have frontage, 12 acres on a bay. We have like, gosh, tell me, 2,500 feet on the lake and 2,100 feet on the bay. And we've got this, that's an incredible asset. And so exciting, definitely a destination, someplace I think the town of Webster is going to be very proud of in the years to come.
Incredibly impressive, and I look forward to the input from our residents also. Also, obviously very interested in the additional grants that we can get. I'll be looking very forward to that, because the cost we can keep to the minimum for our residents.
2.7 million is not enough for you, Mr. Gale?
100% would be really, really fantastic, man.
I'll do my level best.
I know you will, sir.
Matt, you know that we've talked a $10 million project, we expect to get grants of $11 million. That's the goal.
One thing, one of our other customers, I mean, the ARPA money, there's stormwater improvement money that you can use for that. I don't know what you've dedicated it for. Stormwater improvement is something this park is definitely doing.
Yeah, exactly. That's another discussion that we intend to have with the town board regarding those rescue plan funds. And I have asked for initial eligibility components, which were the utilities, water and sewer.
Stormwater
We
improvement is
have
absolutely a function that's
$400,000 worth of utility improvements, I believe, as part of that already become eligible for that funding source, absent any new information from the treasurer.
As we were talking, Matt, this project checks so many boxes for grant eligibility. I think it's just a perfect time. And post-COVID, I think it even makes it stronger. I think it's been so clear through the COVID stretch that how important parks are to the communities. I think this has got all the right assets for that.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Steve. And those visuals are fantastic. I think our residents will be very, very impressed with the public meetings. I really do. That was impressive.
We have some wonderful boards. They're literally 4 feet in length. And when you see those images at 4 feet in length, it's pretty exciting.
Great project.
You gonna get everybody home early tonight?
We are. Unless, it's up to you.
No. I already promised Barry I'm done.
See you.
Promise.
Early?
No,
No, you really?
I just want to get through the others.
Okay. Okay. Dolly? Bill, you already, I know what you said. Bill, Barry?
We're good.
Josh?
It's a wonderful project. They will come.
Mary, you think you'll have some fun as town engineer on this one?
Of course.
Yep.
I want to thank all our department heads for coming this evening, also taking the time away from your family. Thank you.
Well, dang, I think. Anything else? That's the conclusion of tonight's workshop. And look forward to Have a great weekend, everybody, because next week we're gonna put the show on the road to the rec center, right?